All right, back to do some modding tool development today. The work on ProtoJam and that little example game is still going to continue, but I wanted to change things up a bit and work on this since I've been reading the books that the game is based on and was just kind of in the mood to work on it again. So if you're not familiar with Riverworld or Rivermod, I don't blame you. They're not. I don't think anybody other than me cares, but we're going to show it anyway. So Riverworld is an RTS game that came out in like 1998. Kind of unique because it's very micromanagey. I haven't played Age of Empires, but I believe it's fairly similar to that, where you progress through technological ages, you claim territory along massive river, and ultimately you're fighting against two other enemy AIs that are doing the same thing. And whenever you reach a certain technological level, you move over to the next map, and there's 4 maps total in the game. It's not a very long game. It's not a very complex game. It's honestly not the greatest because there's very easy ways to cheese the enemy AI, and if you don't cheese it, they absolutely annihilate you, so you kind of have to. But I like it. It's a weird, quirky little game, and I love the aesthetics of it. So I developed some modding tools. In total, I have a save game manager, which you can see here. Let me just bring that up a little bit bigger. So the save game manager, the game doesn't allow you to have more than 10 save slots. I think it's 10. So to be able to, and you kind of have to save scum because it's prone to crashing. I don't think that's an issue originally. I think that's a modern hardware problem. But the save manager basically will bank some of your saves automatically, so you can recall them and bring them back into one of the game's 10 slots. The other two things are the game uses what I believe is a proprietary model format that's .xxx. It's not to be confused with DirectX though. As far as I can tell, it's similar to a DirectX file, but it's not the same. It stores the same kinds of information, but not in the same format. So you have that back there, the model viewer, and then the map viewer. And the maps are 512 by 512 grid. Fairly straightforward with those. Now the problem that we're going to try and address today, and why this stream is titled Refactoring, is right now these are 3 separate Godot projects. And yes, I'm doing my tool development in Godot. If you're going to make modding tools for a game, you may as well start with a thing that knows how to render meshes. So that's why I'm not going to elaborate on that anymore. It's what I know. But the problem is that right now, Rivermod itself is the save game manager, and then it launches one of these 2 as separate executables, which is really messy. And it's made it, I've delayed doing any improvement on the code or adding new features because the map viewer and model viewer share some very similar code, but right now it's split and they're not actually set up in a way where I can reuse that code. Now I've started this a little bit, so we'll close this out for now. Where I am at currently is I've brought over the map viewer, or I've started bringing over the map viewer's code into the main project code. So if we come over here, this is all that's left to be migrated. There's obviously going to be some interesting work we have to do because originally this was a standalone project, so it has its own main. We're going to move that under a window, and I'm going to have to figure out a new way to launch it. It also needs to hook into the main project's settings system so that it can figure out where the game installation directory is. But so right now I've moved over the map file format, which I may as well just go ahead and show that a little bit. So the map file is just comprised of cells which store a depth, a texture index, some kind of field, I don't know what it does, and some flags that I kind of know what they do, but I'm not 100% certain on the functionality. So one of my goals with Rivermod is that when I read in the game's format, I want to read in all the data, even if I don't know what it does, so that I can write it back. And the end goal is that Rivermod isn't just going to be a viewer, it's going to be an editor. Right now you can edit the files. I have documentation to how you can do that, and some things that I know for certain work, one of them being editing the depth of the cells or changing the textures. But there's some things that the game seems a little messy with. So flags, for example, I've noticed that some of them seem to affect depth, namely the ones that indicate whether or not something's water seem to overwrite the depth. So there's stuff like that that's not 100% understood yet. But yeah, so we've got that, these grid cells. Oh yeah, here's some things, some of the flags. So is it buildable? Is it a boundary? Is it a river? Is it a bank? Is it a discovered location? So that's like your fog of war. And yeah, just a big array of 512 of those. Pretty straightforward. And then the big thing, this is the main thing I wanted to reuse, this parse context. This has all the functionality to read a binary file. Now Godot has this packed byte array, which has functionality to read binary files, but it's lacking some specifics that you kind of need. One of them is the ability to create sub arrays, because a lot of times these binary files for games are split into what's called a frame, where you have one chunk of data and then there's like another format chunk of data embedded within it, and that's what you'd call a frame. So these child contexts allow you to parse the frames a little more easily. Yeah, some stuff here like getting 32-bit number, 16-bit number, 8-bit number, 16, as well as fixed length strings and C strings, all the different kinds of data that I've encountered figuring out how these files work. And if you care about the file formats themselves, I'm not going to talk about that really on stream. There's too much to go into. But if you go to the Rivermod project on GitHub, on the wiki, I have I'm hex patterns, which is like a pattern parsing language, or how to parse all the files I understand, and documentation, a lot of documentation on what they do, or if I don't know for certain, what I believe they do. So go check that out. All right, so let's get into the main meat of this. So right now, what I need to move over is this camera, the main class, and the map importer. I'm not going to worry too much about the map importer right now. I'm not 100% certain where I'm going to put that, because I have the main project, and I'll say too, as I move this stuff over, the code is going to be messy. This stuff was written as a proof of concept, and I haven't improved it yet because it wasn't consolidated. So we're going to bring it over more or less as it is, and then I'm going to improve it later, probably not on this stream. Okay, so let's start with, I think, the camera, because I think that's going to be relatively standalone and not really require a lot of work to get it working, or updates. So let's see here. We have scripts, editor, config, hashing. I think we're gonna do a new folder for now. We're just gonna call this like map viewer. Whoa, caps lock is on. And we're just going to chuck it in there so I can kind of keep all this separate from the rest of the stuff that's a little better organized. Okay. And then literally all I'm going to do is I'm going to grab these and just move them straight over. Oh, wrong folder. Just come over here to map viewer, chuck it in there. Let Godot import it. And let's see if any of this is going to work. So one thing is this script is actually borrowed from another project. I remember I was having trouble getting this to work and I needed to borrow it. I'm going to replace this with my own, because I ultimately want this to be a camera that can place things. I think I've mentioned on some of my Game Jam streams, I don't like to have input as part of the actual camera or player controller. I like to have that as a separate class. So that you can hook it into other things. So this is going to be temporary. It looks like, because it is something I pulled externally. I'm not going to have a worry about that. Okay, so then we can just move on. That's one down, 1 out of 3. Awesome. Okay, so next up is this map importer. This one's a little interesting because I think I kind of want to put this under the Riverworld directory, but we'll see. Let's take a look at what I have here. So we have game save data. So the main Riverworld project, like I said, is the save game manager. So that's kind of the way its project structure is outlined, is for the save game manager. And the plan is still that the main window is going to be the save game manager. I'm still going to have you click a button to open the utilities. It's just they're not going to be standalone executables anymore. Okay, so we've got this. Okay. We got packed byte array from map bytes, data bytes. One thing I'm not sure about is I noticed that I had never checked in the parsers directory, which is where I parse map files. So I'm a little bit confused how, yeah, okay, yeah, get map save file name. Interesting. Okay, I'm not sure. Okay, there's a lot of unimplemented stuff in here. Yeah, it's been a bit since I messed with this, so it's a little bit dredging up the dead to figure out how exactly a lot of this works. So I also, yeah, I built a dependency injection system that probably needs to be ripped out. I don't know why I did that. I think I was thinking Java with my I have a background in Java, and that's what I was leaning towards, is like the Java Juice library, if you've ever used that, dependency injection. And there's other ways to do that in Godot that I did not need to go make a dependency injection library. Okay, so save archive. File system save archive, get archive save data. Okay, where? Map file name, save directory, get save data. Trying to find where this is being used, if anywhere. Get archived saves. Okay, here's, so we have an archive. So from game save data, write the manifest. Okay, save directory, load manifest. Okay, write file, save archive scope. Yeah, there's this whole thing too where the Rivermod is intended to be like a full IDE, kind of like the Godot editor, where you'd be able to like drag assets in, import assets, meant to have a mod loader. Like, it's complete overkill is the end goal for being a game that I'm sure is probably remembered by hundreds of people at absolute most, if even that many. But it's mostly an attempt to get experience doing dev tool development, and also just for fun. Honestly, there's a lot of fun in just building something, even if you know nobody's ever going to use it. Okay, so we have create manifest. Okay, so we do have parse context. So apparently, okay, well, that's cool. So apparently this was being used. I just never checked it in, which means that the code in GitHub would have just not worked if somebody tried to build it. I was gonna say, I thought that was really weird. Oops. All right, well, either way, all right, I'm gonna also rename a couple things here. It occurred to me that I'm using model to refer to this. Now, the pattern I'm going for here is that, and this might change. At the moment, the raw data is not stored. Like, I don't literally bring in the raw data and do on-the-fly parsing. I read in the file, parse it into, you know, whatever the Godot data type would be, or object that I've modeled for it would be, and then I have code to serialize it back, or I will have code to serialize it back. At the moment, I don't have the serialize functions, just the parse. Okay, so that's good to know that that is in there. So let's go back to the map viewer and let's see. So the importer, okay, so it would not be in the parsers directory. It would probably be here. So we have this game file source, an installation game file source. So these are the classes that will read the Rivermod settings to where your game install directory is. And then I have the save archive, which is like the service that manages automatically fetching it. So that's probably where it should be, I'm thinking. Although I'm wondering why save repository is a separate Why is this a separate thing that's using game save data? Because that's not this class. So what is this game save data? So it's okay, interesting. I don't know why that's stored. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know why save repository is stored in the Riverworld directory. The idea would be that the Riverworld directory was meant to be the stuff that is literally pertaining to the game, not something that Rivermod. So, you know, your parsers and fetching game files, detecting whether or not it's a legal save name, stuff like that. Which I'm guessing might be why this is in here, is this is probably... Ah, yeah, okay, that's why it's in here. It's in here because it directly modifies the game directory. Because it needs to add and remove files for the save games. Okay. All right, then, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do... We'll just put this in the map viewer directory then. Let's keep this straightforward for now. Okay. All right, so we grab that folder. We'll just move this one over. Now, I did put the map file in the parsers directory because I think that's more correct. Okay, yeah. Now this is obviously going to have a lot of stuff that needs to be changed. So one of them is the way the game handles rendering, or the way the game handles it is that every grid cell can be assigned a texture from a huge texture array that's defined in what I call a script file. That script file basically says that array index 0 equals this texture, array index 1 equals this texture, blah, blah, blah. And then in the map file, it just has the integer for the index that cell should be. And the way I render that in game is I create a singular mesh, and then I use the vertex data of the mesh to indicate what texture should be rendered. And I have this custom shader which you pass in that whole array of textures that you read in from the script file, and it will read the vertex data and choose the correct texture based on that. I could probably have used a 3D grid in Godot, or map grid, whatever the heck they're called. But I felt like this was the most straightforward option at the time. And I think it kind of still is, honestly. My goal isn't to bring stuff over into a Godot node necessarily. It's just to bring it over into a format that I can visualize it and eventually edit it. So it doesn't, and I'm not going to edit it in Godot itself. I'm using Godot to build the tool, but it's not going to be the editor. Not in the way that Godot's editor is built in Godot. Just to clarify that. Although I do want to have the option to export to GLTF. I think that would be nice. Now, where is this texture? Because this map texture shader... Ah, there it is. Okay. So that needs to be changed. And again, this isn't... do as I say, not as I do. Hard referencing stuff like this is not necessarily the best way to go about it. Remember, this is prototype code, so it's going to be messy. Okay, so now we have map file. That's going to be map file model. I just changed that. And for the most part, that should come over without too much difficulty. I will say this is a very complex... the maps, for being a 512 by 512 grid, are surprisingly complex to construct as a mesh. And the reason for that is that the way Godot does it is that the maps, and I assume this is more of a technical limitation of how the game works and not something they deliberately did, but in Riverworld, if you walk to the edge of the map, it's not just like a drop-off. What it does is it loops the map. So if you go all the way to the very first cell on the very first row and column, the next tile to your left would be the last cell of the row and column. But it's not that simple. It doesn't just tile the grid for the map vertically and horizontally. Horizontally, it's tiled, but it's tiled with an offset where it's like one column off. At least that's what I recall. It's really weird. And it messes with the way the vertices at the edges of the map are rendered. And you can't just not do that because it messes with some maps in the game. Like one of the maps has a canyon, and if you don't copy the vertices from the other end when it wraps, that canyon gets screwed up. It's really strange, and the logic for that is fairly complicated. I don't even want to look at this. It took me days to get this working correctly. I knew what I needed to do, but it was a pain. So we're just going to ignore this like 100-line long function and move right on past that. And for the now, we're mostly just updating this. We're not going to worry about the formatting or anything else because the vast majority of this stuff needs to change anyways, because the whole way that I'm loading, saving, and all that needs to be modified to make this conducive for editing. Okay, yeah, I also know that this is not correct. I know that the mini-map is generated from a palette, but I don't know where the palette is defined. I think it might even be in the game's code. It might not even be a file. I'm not 100% certain, but at least for the moment, that's how that works. Some of the stuff too, that I've probably learned new things since I wrote the original prototype, and I've forgotten to go back and updated it, or just haven't updated it because it wasn't important at the time, or because I didn't want to, more likely because I didn't want to mess with this thing and potentially break something. Okay, so now we're going to bring these over, and I'll rename them in here after I brought them over because I know it's not going to be happy. So we're going to call this map viewer on all of them. And that probably just screwed up. Oh, no, actually it did that correctly. I was half expecting it to not import or update the UID file. All right, cool. So map viewer, and change that to map viewer. That also needs to be a different type of node. And again, you can see just how messy this is. And a lot of stuff that is not loaded in correctly. So we're going to fix that. So wireframe material, we'll bring that over. I believe this is another thing that I got online. Just doing wireframes is surprisingly complicated. Okay, and that is a parser context, or parse context, I think. Yep, that's a map file model, and that I renamed to parse to be the same as something else. There we go. It's starting to make sense. So this should not be a node 3D. This, I think, should be a window. Let me double check. What are the... Okay, yeah, this is the window is the base class. I guess I could do it as a pop-up. Probably not a great idea. Okay, so then I need to... This will get you, by the way, in Godot. If you attach a script to the root node of a scene and you change the type in the script, but you don't change the type in the scene, you can get some really weird errors at runtime. So make sure if you're doing that, you do change it in both places. Okay, now there's a couple things I need to fix here. So this is getting the game directory from a command line argument, which was not how I'm going to do this anymore. So we need to fix that. There's also a lot of logic in this thing that needs to be moved out of here. But main thing is I just want to get this out. So what I'm going to need is the dependency injection system, I believe. What I wrote for that. So one of the things we have is this main menu bar where we actually open... Or no, I guess this isn't opening it. It's just emitting signals. It's probably main where I'm handling that. Yeah, okay, so map viewer pressed is on map viewer pressed. Okay, that's launch map viewer. Okay, yeah, external tool service launch map viewer. And this is going to end up going away, but this is to launch the external process. Okay, launch tool, and yeah, map viewer PID. Map viewer PID, how is that? -1. And returns its PID. Okay, I don't know how that works, but PID, if PID does not, huh? Oh, okay, I guess it reuses an ID. I don't know what I was doing there. Okay, so map viewer executable. Where is? Okay, here's the game directory. It's in launch tool. All right. So what I'm probably gonna do is, so that I don't have to gut a significant part of the code right now, I'm probably going to change it here to where launch map viewer. Well, oh, this is not. Oh, actually, that's wrong. So this is something I used to do. I've been meaning to make a short about this. Don't use object directly 99% of the times. If you make your things extend object, you have to free them. They don't have automatic garbage collection. Use ref counted. Again, having a Java background hurt me there. I did not pay attention to the documentation when I was initially doing this, and I believe there's actually a lot of stuff in here that is unfortunately based on object, not ref counted, and that is not correct. Yeah, let's actually fix that now, because this is going to be a problem if I don't. And window editor configuration. Yeah. I did this everywhere, absolutely everywhere, which is a shame because there's a lot of code in here too. This shouldn't break anything though, because ref counted is a type of object, so it's very unlikely that anything would break from that. But I will need to find wherever I'm using that injector, because that injector is going to provide the game directory. I need to figure out how to use that thing. Hey, how's it going? Just writing some old coding mistakes here in this modding tool so I can get it working again. Nice. I don't suppose you caught the state of play today? Is that something you're interested in? I just watched it a little bit earlier. I would have done this stream earlier, but I wanted to see what Sony had coming out. All right, that should be fixed. Everything's ref counted now. Oh, nice. Anything you had your fingers crossed for? I have to admit, it wasn't my favorite one this time around. Not as much stuff that I was personally looking forward to, but I also wasn't really expecting anything I was looking for to be in this one. Cool to see Insomniac still doing some cool stuff, though. More of a Ratchet & Clank fan than a Wolverine fan, but it's awesome still seeing them make good games. Okay, let's see. So that's fixed. So now I can come over here and I have to figure out how on earth this dependency injector works that I wrote like 2 years ago. Where is the main? Okay, here's the main code. There's the injector. Yeah, it looks like a good like hack and slash kind of fun game. It's kind of reminded a little bit, honestly. Since it's a Wolverine game, I don't know why, but the whole time I just kept thinking Metal Gear's Revengeance, Rising Revengeance. I don't think they're gonna go that crazy with it, but that would be awesome if it escalates to Wolverine just cutting giant mechs in half. I thought the God of War was interesting. I wasn't expecting him to change characters. When I first saw that, I was half expecting it to be a prequel. Where am I using this injector? How does this work? This is what happens when you write code and you tell yourself that you're going to clean it up later, and then later is like 3 years later. Okay, creates application injection context. Oh, okay, that's all right. That's how it works. Okay, so I really did write this to work the same as juice. I should not have done that. Oh, this is what happens when you put a Java programmer in front of Godot. They do Java programmer things in a language and framework that does not benefit from that. Okay, so how do I get this injector where I need it to be? I guess I have to do provide scene. That's probably what yeah. I'm guessing the config app is probably, where is that? Is that over here somewhere? Editor config, I'm guessing. Configuration source. Oh no, it would be under scenes, wouldn't it? Is this what I think it is? I think it is. Yes, it is. Yeah, okay. Oh, that's gonna make this so much more annoying to do. Okay. So I have to ask, because I have morbid curiosity, have you ever heard of the game Riverworld? Is this all, am I doing this just for me, or have other people actually heard of this game before? Or alternatively, the books or the sci-fi miniseries? Just genuinely curious, because yeah, okay. Yeah, that checks out. I am not surprised. The game came out in 1998, and the only reason even I know about it is I used to get a lot of games from Big Lots when they were still open, which is like a closeout store. And it literally just would pile games in these giant like Walmart bins near the checkout. And they always had really weird stuff that I guess other stores couldn't sell. So Riverworld was one of them. Although bizarrely, it came out in 1998, and I got that game probably in like 2004. So I don't know why it was still hanging around then. But it is, it's loosely based on a series of books, where the gist of it is that every human that's ever existed or ever will exist wakes up on a massive alien planet alongside a huge river that basically goes all the way around the planet. And so you've got people that were, like cavemen walking alongside people from the distant future that are used to having like cybernetic implants and that. And they all just sort of wake up on the banks of this river. And then anytime one of them dies, they just wake up somewhere else along the river. So it's just absolute chaos and that's more or less that's basically the premise of the books. And then the game kind of does follow that pretty decently. But the main thing is that everyone obviously wants to know, why the hell are they here? How did they get here? What is going on? Who put them there? And one guy, Thomas Burton, who was a real person, was an explorer. He, for whatever reason, woke up before he was supposed to, so he saw the like cloning room where the whatever aliens were cloning the people before they put them on the river. So that made him want to find out where they were. And one of the things he was famous for was exploring, I think it was the Nile River. So he decides that he's going to follow the river all the way to its source, all the way around the planet, and hopes that he's going to find whatever the answer is for why they're all there. Which is basically all the story the game gives you. The game was clearly rushed. It's missing a lot of functionality that was originally advertised. There's a lot of stuff in its files that's just not ever used, like a multiplayer mode. So that's kind of all the game gives you. And it's very, very loosely based on the books. But it's, I thought it was kind of it's an interesting game. It's got some really cool 3D models, especially. It gets very, not quite H.R. Geiger-esque, but a little bit like H.R. Geiger with some of the later models, because you progress through technological ages, and towards the end of the game you end up in like nanotechnology, and all of the vehicles in your units are like bug inspired. but made out of like chrome and steel. It's a really interesting looking game. I said at the start of the stream though that it's not a great game. I will say that. The enemy AI is hyper aggressive. There's 2 other explorers that you have to fight on each map, and they are so hyper aggressive and probably cheating that if you do not cheese the game mechanics, you are gonna lose. And once you start to lose, there's really no way to claw your way back. And there's not really checkpoints either. You get 10 save slots in the base game, and so you can't even really save scum it. You're just kind of doomed if they get too far from you, because once the map is split up. In fact, actually, I think I was gonna say the map is split up into territories, and you only get the people in territories allied to you, but there's nothing in the game that stops the enemy from capturing every single territory. So it can end up just being your lone character, and with no conceivable way that you are ever going to reclaim a territory. So you basically get soft locked. The game has so many weird problems like that, but I wanted it. The good thing about it is because the game is very easy to mod. The files are super simple and pretty spelled out. It doesn't use any like complex compression or encryption or anything weird like that. So it's very easy to tinker with it. So Rivermod is my collection of tools for messing with it. So this is just to give you an example here. This is what we're starting with. So Rivermod is currently 3 tools, or 3 separate executables: a map viewer, a model viewer, and a save game manager. And what I'm doing this stream is trying to merge their code bases into one, because I've learned new stuff about how the game works, and I don't want to make improvements to just one tool and then have to go back and update it in the other one later. Because one of the things you can actually see here, every one of these little tan patches is supposed to be a building. What you're seeing is like its foundation on the map viewer, but because the map viewer doesn't know how to read the game's models, I can't put the buildings in there. So I need to merge the code base for the map viewer and the model viewer so I can actually render the buildings. But yeah, that's what we're doing. If for any reason you have any interest in modding the game or checking it out, I've got a whole wiki on GitHub. That just search Rivermod, and I've got all the technical details about the game and how to get it up and running on modern hardware. So I think I'm probably the only person who cares about it anymore, but let's see. So in here, I need to do another injection for this scene. Let's see, where is that dialogue? Okay. So we need to do var app viewer. And then I believe all I need to do here is just do injector.provide scene. Where the heck is that coming from? Oh. Why am I preloading that? Yeah, this is the other tricky thing. This project predates the version of Godot that had UIDs, so I've got a lot of hard-coded paths in here too. This is a bit of a mess. This whole thing was as I was figuring out how to parse the game's files, I was making these test utilities, and I never really intended them to stick around long term, so I never did anything to clean them up or port them to newer versions of Godot. Okay, where is the save manager widget? There it is. Okay, so now I just need to do the same thing again. Why am I... These should not be on ready. It also doesn't help. I've learned a lot. I've done like 8 or 9 game jams and got a lot more experience with Godot since I wrote this. So there's a lot of stuff that I recognize now is just really bad practice. And need to go back and work on it. Okay, so save manager scene. think we're about to the point, once I get this figured out though, we should be able to get the map viewer back up and running again. And then, I guess this really, this scene should really be over here, shouldn't it? So we'll move that over. Now, I said at the start of the stream, the goal is not to fix all the problems in the project right now. It's just to get all 3 executables merged so I can start consolidating. So there's definitely some stuff that should be fixed, but we're not going to do that today. We're just going to try and modernize it a bit. Okay, so then we need that one over here. It's interesting. I wonder why that... Why would... Oh, I am adding it down there. Okay, whatever. Okay, so we add the map viewer. And yeah, content container is a different thing, so I'm not going to worry about that. Okay, cool. So that should be good. It's still not going to work though, because I need to actually figure out how to inject something into it. Right. So map viewer on, yeah, okay, over here. Also, I should probably add a node 3D here. I don't like that all my 3D nodes are just hanging out without a parent 3D node. I don't think that'll affect them, but makes me a little uncomfortable. So we're gonna bring these into there. There we go. Okay, now let's take a look at this config. Ah, okay, I remember how this works now. Yeah, you include an injector, I believe. Yeah, and I believe the injector will automatically inject an instance of itself if the variable is underscore injector. Because I had to make this really weird and complicated. There's so many better ways to do that than using a dependency injection in Godot. It kind of already has a dependency injection framework, and I decided to be extra and try to write my own. I see what that got me. Okay, so that needs to be up here. And then I'm not going to use this get game directory anymore. We're going to pull that out. And then in here, we're going to do provide. Okay, and what I need is a game. What is that thing called? A inject. Nope. I think it was actually in this. That's providing an editor configuration service. Yeah, okay, get game install directory. Yeah. So I need an editor configuration service. Oh, wrong thing. Okay. All right, and then config service can do get game install directory. That's not perfect because this isn't going to update whenever I change it, which is unfortunate, but that's a start. I think that might be enough to make it work. Let's see. Okay, well, that's unexpected. I wasn't expecting it to open as a sub window like that. Cool. Where's the mode for this? Oh, actually, you know what? I think it's in the project settings, weirdly enough. Where is it? I remember there's an issue about this, or if you have sub windows, you have to go into Godot's settings. Yeah, there we go. Embed sub windows. If you want them to be separate windows, you have to turn that off. Otherwise, when you create a window node, it ends up as like a pop-up inside the other node, which is really weird. Yep, okay, there we go. There it is. Nice. That went by surprisingly without major issues. And is this loading? Kind of lagging. I think it's doing something. Interesting. Is there not? Huh. I somehow broke that. Okay. Well, at least I know now that it is definitely getting the game directory correctly, because these wouldn't be displayed otherwise if it wasn't. That's strange that nothing's happening though. And then I'm not getting any warnings other than the 4 that I was already expecting. Interesting. Okay, but this is working though. That is really bizarre. Why? Let me go to the remote mode and see what's happening. So we have the map viewer. Okay, yeah, it did not add anything to the container. The user interface is, you know, whatever. Okay. This is still... Alright, well, we're gonna have to do a little bit of debugging then and figure out what on earth is going on here. Something did not load like it was supposed to. So we have change map. This should have gotten called. And that is going to parse it. Okay, so I'm going to put a breakpoint there. We're going to see if we rerun this, if that even gets called. Okay, I really need to fix the default size and position of that window. Okay, so we're going to say L1. Yeah, all right. That's not getting called. Interesting. Huh. Why would that... Why is change map not getting called? Where is this supposed to get called from? Okay. On map select button, item selected. Or on script selected. Interesting. Okay, so if map file. And then this one is if script. Yeah, okay. All right. So we're going to launch this again. We're going to put a breakpoint there. Okay, before I forget, I'm also fixing that. That is driving me crazy. 640, 480. I don't know, whatever. And where is position? I'm going to do center of main screen. Here. Or rerun that so I can stop. There we go. That's better. Okay, so now I put this breakpoint on the one that triggers on the map select. So we'll select the script first, and then we do the map select. And it didn't trigger. Interesting. Okay. Interesting. Let's put that breakpoint up here and see if that makes any difference. That makes me think that these event handlers are not hooked to anything. Yeah, okay, that breakpoint is still not firing. So I don't think this function's getting called. Where are you connected? You were not... Yeah, that'll do it. Okay, it's literally not connected to anything. Why are these all... Okay. Current theme style has shadows, but these won't display correctly. Okay, whatever. I don't think that was a problem before. Interesting. Why are these not connected to anything? Oh. How is this even working? Oh, you know what? Okay, I bet I know what I did. I probably wired these up through the inspector. I probably didn't wire them up through code. I never wire anything through the inspector anymore, exactly because of things like this. So if you, this is a fun little thing. So if you go over here in the inspector and you use the signals to connect things, this can cause a whole mess of problems, I found. If you're just doing like level design, it's probably not a big issue. But if you're making reusable components or standalone scenes, I found that you can get a lot of weird issues where these signals sometimes just get disconnected or weird junk like that happens. And I think that's what we're seeing here, is that when I brought the scene over, even though I copied the TSCN file, I don't think it copied over the signal connections. So we're going, what I do nowadays is I manually connect them in the ready function. So we're just going to go up here and let's see. So I have scripts. I bet these aren't even in here, are they? Oh no, they are. Let's just double check. Yeah, I was right. There's no signals connected in there. Okay. So we have script select dot pressed dot connect. Well, actually, that's not what I want. I want item selected dot connect. Then I want the same thing for the map. Selected dot connect. All right, so we're going to connect that one. And in here, I'm guessing it's probably called something similar on script select. Yep, there we go. Yeah, okay. That one, that's a fun one. All right, so what else do we have? On fog of war, wrap edges. Okay, we'll reconnect those. All right, and render mode, then wrap edges, and then we should have it working again now. It helps when you actually have things connected to your signals and your buttons. All right, fog of war toggle. That is, yeah, toggled. Connect. Oh, the editor is really freaking out today. It might be because this is the mono build of Godot. It might not be as stable. I rarely ever use this one. But the good thing about the mono version, this project is largely written in GDScript, but I needed hashing functionality, and Godot's hashing library is not great. So the nice thing about using the mono build is that you can use any C# library you want. So I just pulled down a hashing library from C#, and then you can wrap it so that it is accessible from GDScript. So even though I'm using the mono project, it's like 99% GDScript, and you only need like an interface or an abstraction layer accessing some of the C# stuff. So like in this case, this C# file, all it does is just expose a hash function. And then I'm using XX hash 3 or IO hashing, I guess is the package name. So it means that you can get all the benefits of the C# stuff without needing to make the whole project C#. This is nice. Okay, wrap. There we go. Wrap edges button. Toggled. Connects. All right. And is that everything? It looks like it. So we have option button, wrap edges, fog of war, map select. Yep. Okay. Cool. That should be connected then. So now we'll see if this works. And hopefully I can actually render a map again, because it's been ages. All right. So we do level 1. Oh, I think it's doing something. Or I broke it. Hey, it worked. Awesome. Cool. Using both. I mean, the first thing obviously is you need to use the mono build of Godot, which if you just go to the Godot site, they have the option for that. I will say, when I say without using C#, I mean that like I can write the most of the logic. You still have to build the project in the mono build of Godot. So if you're trying to get around that, I'm not aware of a way of doing that without like rebuilding the engine. But all you have to do, if you want to use, you know, a C# library, you just make a C# class that exposes whatever functionality you want, and you make it a Godot object. You have it extend Godot object. So in this case, IO hashing is the hashing library I wanted to use. So you do this, and I made this hasher class. You extend Godot object, and then you just add whatever function you want. And in here, xxhash3 is something from this IO hashing library. So you just return whatever you want. That's all you got to do. You just make that function super lightweight, literally just wrapping the function call to the C# library I want to use. And then if I go to, I'm not sure where I'm using this right now. I think it might be under Riverworld. Is it this one? Or maybe it's this one. One of these classes. Actually, I'm using hasher in here somewhere. Might be this one. No, not that one. In this one? Yeah, okay. Yeah, so then in here, let me find it. There we go. So you can just preload this class. So this CS class here, just preload it. And then that will let you use it from your GD script. So it's really useful if you just need like one or two things. Obviously, it's better if you don't have to use C# at all, because then you don't need to use the mono build. Because the big downside is that if you use the mono version of Godot, you're not going to be able to build for web. So it's not great for game jams. But if you're doing your own project, the really nice thing about this is if you have a game and you're writing it in C or in GD script, and you reach a point where your game is starting to lag because GD script does have some pretty serious overhead, you can do this to then come back. Yeah, thankfully it is changing. Fingers crossed, sooner rather than later. But until then, at least, the nice thing is if you do it this way, you can slowly move the critical parts of your project over to C# without converting your whole project into C#. Just by opening it in the mono build and then, you know, moving your critical functionality to a C# script and then just preloading it. Hopefully though, they do get the web build thing working and we can all rejoice. I think they've been talking about that for like 2 or 3 years now, but I know that I've been watching the updates of it, and they do seem to be getting a lot closer by every month. That would be nice, because that is kind of the one inevitability with Godot, is that as good as GD script is for just rapid prototyping, it does start to bog down your project pretty fast, because it has to go through a lot of interface layers to talk to the engine, whereas C# doesn't have to go through as many. It still has more overhead than if you were doing it in C++ directly, but nobody wants to do that because then you have to recompile the engine. Okay, so it looks like, I think this is fully working now. Wait, I forgot to check all the buttons before I close that. Now I need to figure out how to make it pop up only when it's needed. Okay, there we go. Yeah. Nice. And let's open app00.save. I don't know what save file that is. I'm guessing that's level, yeah, okay. That was probably a level 1 save file. So we'll see if the Fog of War is working as well. Come on, there we go. There we go. Yeah, alright, so the Fog of War works. I don't know what on earth I was doing in the save file that I was running around every edge of the map and somehow managed to avoid the center, but... Oh, wait, no, this isn't... No, this is like level 3. That's why that looks weird. Yeah, there we go. That makes more sense. Yeah, this game is kind of interesting how it handles texturing. Because it's such an old game, it had to use palette mode in DOS to render. So even though the textures have a color in them, surprisingly the game just uses PNGs for all of its textures. But even though it's using PNGs, the palette from the PNG file gets overwritten by the game with a different palette, which is kind of interesting. So you can end up with some funky issues in the editor right now if you load the wrong script file, basically, or it's called ASM, but it's not an assembly file. I think it's because the game was developed by a French studio. I think that's actually supposed to be the word assemblage in French, and butchering the pronunciation of that, but I think it's meant to be like project or something like that would be the equivalent in English. And it's not literally a .assembly file, even though the game is old enough that it could theoretically be written in assembly. Okay, yeah, all of this looks like it's working. The camera controls are working. I think that's just like that in game. All right, yeah. Yes, this is kind of an interesting thing. I want to show this because this is weird. Riverworld is old enough that it does like the classic arcade thing where here, let me turn this off. If you walk off the edge of the map, you wrap back around to the other side. But you don't just literally wrap back around, you wrap back around with an offset, which is really interesting. So if you look, the way the game renders the map is if it was tiled infinitely on the x-axis, but on the y-axis, everything past this point would just be a flat plane. That's just hard-coded to the way the game works. But what's interesting is when it wraps on the edge, it doesn't wrap directly, it wraps with a one-row offset. This took forever to figure out when I was trying to reverse engineer the game and figure out how it worked. And the reason that's important is the geometry on the left edge of the map shares the vertices with the geometry on the right edge of the map. So you can actually see that here, where if I turn wrapping off, you can see there's this hole, but you turn it back on, and now you can see that this is part of that curve. And it's more noticeable over here. So this is the, center of the map, right? And you can see this kind of curve here on the geometry. It's getting that curve from the other side of the map. But you have to offset it by one row or it doesn't line up correctly. So you can see on this side, it's offset over here. It's really bizarre. I've never seen a game do this. It's probably one of the strangest quirks about this game. So it's funny, if your character walks, if you keep walking just straight horizontally to one side or the other, you'll slowly move up and down the map because of the offset. It's really weird. Okay. All right, that looks like the map viewer is fully working, so I just need to clean up a couple things here. One, you can't close it. That's problematic. The other thing is I still have the button here that's going to try to launch it as an executable. So let's get rid of that. Well, I think I'm going to keep it in the menu bar. And what I'm going to do is start it minimized. So over here, we're going to do map viewer. Easiest way I found to do this, honestly, is just to hide itself. So in the ready function, we're just going to call hide on the map viewer window. And then over here on main, where is the thing to open the map viewer? Prompt for new game. Okay, launch map viewer. In here, I'm just going to do map viewer dot show. Okay, now this should work now. Okay, good. It didn't show up. There we go. All right, perfect. So now that's popping up like it's supposed to. And I need to make it so that that X button hides it again. I think I'm going to do that from the map viewer itself. So we will just connect a signal. I don't know what that signal is called though, so I'll have to look that up on window. Let's see. Does it have a signal for that, or do I need to listen to it? Ah, close requested. Perfect. I was worried this is one of the things where you had to use Godot's notification system, which is kind of annoying. I get why it exists, but it's kind of annoying. Oh, it's actually got a lot of stuff. Cool. All right, so we'll just do close requested dot connect, and we're just gonna call hide. I think that should work. I don't think this close requested. Yeah, okay, that doesn't have any parameters, so that should work. So now we can launch the map viewer, and now if I... Yeah, there we go. Nice. All right, well, that's got that fixed. That was a lot less painful to merge that code base than I was expecting. Okay, so now the only thing that's not going to work is the game directory. So let's see if I can update that. So what I need to do is actually store a reference to this config service, because that is the thing. And then I need to just fetch that dynamically. All right. So we're going to come into here. Or actually, those are, I've got those as auto loads too. That is not correct. These should be constants. There's no... Oh, actually... no, preload does not need to be an auto load. Also, I do not need that. So we'll ditch that too. So we'll do wireframe. Yeah, I've learned so much from doing so many game jams and being using Godot a lot more, that I've improved a lot since I wrote this. There we go. Okay, so grid material, wireframe material. That's inevitably broken a bunch of stuff. We'll fix that. And I do not want to store a reference to the game directory. I need to fetch that dynamically. Okay. So yeah, we're not going to do that there either. Oh, okay, yeah. So I was checking it in ready. I don't... Does this have anything to tell me? I don't have any signals in here, do I? Oh, that's unfortunate. So this will not tell me if a config value changes. I should have had a signal for that, and I do not. Error configuration, or maybe the config source does? No, it does not. That's unfortunate. So that means that there is no way to detect when that changes and to update the map list. Okay. So then probably what I should do instead... Okay, we're going to take a different approach with this. Because I did not architect this very well the first time I wrote it, it's going to cause me a lot of pain. We're going to go back into here. We're going to put the game directory back. And we're going to take this out because that needs to be refactored to have signal support, but that's kind of out of scope for me today. So what I need to do... Well, for one, I need to fix this. What we're going to do instead is we're just going to have this thing delete itself. If it does, oh, that's interesting. That breakpoint didn't trigger. We're just going to have it delete itself when you click the X button, and then we're just going to make a new copy of it whenever you open it again. Because right now, there would be no way to update it otherwise. So then in main, I'm going to rip this out. So we're going to take map viewer, we're going to get rid of that. We're going to remove this. And then we're just going to add it as a child whenever it opens. So we'll just do var map viewer. Okay. And then we'll just do add child. Okay, perfect. And then over in the map viewer, we're going to ditch this because now it's just always popping up. which I guess means that you can theoretically open more than one copy. Just make sure that actually works. Yep, okay. Yeah, all right, so that's there. Yeah, okay, you can open... That's not necessarily a bad thing. I guess that's fine. A little bit weird that you can do that, but worry about that when I eventually bring this all into one utility or into one integrated environment. Wait, did this one update when that one updated? Oh, what? That isn't right. The minimap updated. What? How are these two connected to each other? Okay, now, all right, that updated. Wait, is it? Yeah, that okay, that's level 1. Oh yeah, okay, it's oh weird. What the heck? How are these connected? What on earth? Oh, that's okay. I guess there is a problem with allowing more than one to open. That is not... That's not even just not thread sit. Wait, what? Oh, that is weird. Okay, yeah. Something is cooked. Okay. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to store a reference to this, and if it's still valid, we're not going to let you open another one. We're just going to hack that in there real quick. Is that, that almost certainly should not be happening. Okay. So we're going to say if is instance valid. We're just going to return and not let you do that. Okay, cool. All right, and now I should not be able to do that again. Okay, good. Oh, that's unfortunate. I almost thought that was a free feature right there. All right. Oh, you know what? It dawns on me. I need to test the shaders and make sure they're still working. It's like the 6th time I've closed and reopened this one file. Okay, let's see. Are you gonna load? Okay, there we go. Actually, let me see if I can load. What are the save games I've got? Ah, there we go. There's one with buildings. Perfect. Okay. Let's check the Fog of War. All right. That makes sense. This is probably a new save. I hadn't left the starting area yet. Okay. So then let's test it with the grid. All right. Looks like the grid texture is working. Debatable how useful that is, but... All right, and then the wireframe. Yep, okay, that's working too. Nice. All right, looks like all the shaders are working. Okay, cool. Yep, all right, I guess that's fine. So on to the model viewer then. Unfortunately, this one's a lot more complicated because the game's models are just a more complicated type of data to deal with. So I'm preemptively going to make a couple directories here because I know I'm going to need them. So in here, we're going to do a new folder for model viewer, and I know I'm going to need one over here in UI as well. Okay, so now over here, I can officially delete the map viewer directory. Nice. Although it does occur to me, there is one other thing I need to do. The external, what did I call that thing? External tool service. Map viewer needs to go away, because that is not a thing anymore. Yep, okay, we'll just blow that up. Awesome. And we'll get rid of the map viewer, PID. Soon I won't need that at all. That'll be nice. because that was a pain. That made building this thing a real nightmare. That's probably how I ended up with the version of it that couldn't build and checked in on my main branch, because I had never actually tested it because it was such a pain in the ass to build this, because it was 3 separate Godot projects. Okay, now here's the fun part with the model viewer. This was a newer project, so it's a little bit better architect. Well, okay, I say that. It's not that much better architected. Okay, so let's start by moving over the materials, because that's kind of the easiest thing. The wireframe shader I don't need to move over, because that's already... This is what I was saying. A lot of this stuff was shared between the 2 projects. So I don't need to move that over. I do need to move over the cloud material, though. So that is a cloud shader. Just bring that over. Okay, and then that's just the shader, right? Yeah, okay, perfect. All right, so then that's interesting. I wonder where the sky material is. Ominous default material. Okay, what is default material? What the heck is that? What did I make here? Okay. I think that's okay. I think I know what that's about. That's if the texture, if for some reason I can't load the texture, that's what I load. That needs a better name than default material. I'll call that like error material instead. Okay, cool. Let's see. All right, there is another shader, a normal vector shader. All right, we're gonna bring that over into the shaders directory as well. I'm a little surprised that I don't see a cloud material though, because I know that it does render clouds in the map viewer. I have a bad feeling that I just made that material inline in the main scene, but we'll find out. We'll uncover all the cruft. Okay, so now normal vector material, bring that over into there. Ah, cannot load oh yeah, that would make sense. Okay, yes, open that anyways. Does this even have parameters? I guess not. That's fine. All right, I think that should be loaded now, so we can clear those errors. Yeah, it looks like that loaded correctly. All right. Let's double check though, just to make sure there wasn't something in that file. I guess, never mind, I already moved it. Oh, you know what? I can check it on the web build. So let's pop this open, and we're just going to take a quick look and make sure that I didn't miss something when I brought that over. Nope, that's the map viewer. Auto viewer. Default, no, not default material. Normal vector material. So Godot tip, if you didn't know, the TRS files are text format. You can open them, and if you ever want to compare your settings, you can go in there and just look at what stuff was set. They're not the easiest things to read because they use these internal IDs to reference things. So you have to do like a lot of control Fing. Like in this case, shader is 1_s. So you have to control F in the file, and somewhere else it'll tell you. But they are technically human readable. Okay, so I can see in this case, I did actually have remap range set to true. So that's good to know. I'm glad I checked that. It's one of the reasons I love Godot actually, is that it's very friendly for text-based version control like Git. A lot of other game engines I've worked with, I don't know if it's changed, but years ago, like it would have been 10 years ago, yeah. Unity was not very good at, again, 10 years ago, was not very good at the time at version control. It technically supported version control, but a lot of the files it created were binary. So you checked them in and it was like, okay, is this good? Is this bad? Did I break something? I don't know, because you couldn't actually, you couldn't make sense of what the file was. when you checked it in. It was really annoying. They may be better at that now, but Godot, at least from the very start, has been much better about it. You can use binary file formats for resources, but I've never seen anyone actually do that in practice because it's not really necessary. There's not a good reason to do that. At least not when you're developing the game. When you package the game, then it might be a bigger issue. Okay. Right, so we have the main file, and I have this grid material. This might be the same grid. Oh no, it's different. Okay. All right, well that's problematic because this is also a grid. We're gonna call that map grid. And then we're just gonna bring these over and bring those into the textures directory. Let Godot import that, so then we can rename that, and I'm going to call that model ground grid. Yeah, because it's meant to create a ground effect, a retro looking, I don't even know what I'd call it, but the model viewer is meant to have a very retro look to it. I was trying to recreate retro software in its design, so the ground is like this pixelated grid, or not necessarily retro software. Trying to recreate the feel of Riverworld because it's a very strange game. Okay, so the next thing we're going to pull over is the translator. So I mentioned earlier that a lot of the game was developed by Cryo Interactive, which is a French studio. So unfortunately, a lot of the files are in French. There is a lot of English in there too, more than I was expecting, but a lot of them are in French. And what's worse than that, it's not just that they're in French, because that would be fine. It's that this is an old Windows game, so the file names are in 8.3 format, which means 8 characters dot 3 character extension. So a lot of the file names are not a full word. They're like a shortened version of the word, an abbreviation, and they're an abbreviation in French. So it made it really difficult when I was trying to figure out what was what in the game. So I made a translator and I hooked it into the model viewer, which is the only place it is, which is again part of the reason why I'm merging the code bases. But it would auto translate the names of the models based on what I had figured out the abbreviation meant. Because some of them were not, a lot of them were kind of obvious, because a lot of French words and English words, or a lot of English words are based on a French word. So it's not that hard to figure it out, but some of them were kind of a stretch to figure out what on earth that meant. Okay, so we'll bring that over, and actually I'm going to move the translator out into just the normal scripts directory. Because I think the rule I had for myself was that the stuff in the Riverworld directory is things that modify the game. But yeah, so here's another one. I used object everywhere, and I was supposed to use ref counted. Yeah, so this is my big manual lookup table of French abbreviations to full English words. And that's not even everything. There's a lot of other stuff I found. I know this is out of date because I updated the wiki not long ago with some other words that I needed to add. Yeah, there we go. So there's that. All right, that one thankfully came over without too much difficulty. Let's bring over. I really don't mess with the deserialization context, but I know I have to. I may as well. This is arguably the most complex class in the whole thing. Map Viewer had an equivalent version of it, and so did this. I renamed it though to Parse Context. Hopefully this is mostly the same, because they were originally copies of each other, but then they started to diverge and they had different functionality. So we're gonna have to go comparison by comparison and figure out what needs to move over. So I've got from file that looks like that's the same. We'll find out whenever I go to build the thing if the thing crashes on me. Okay, from parent, I've got that. That looks like what I coded earlier, so I'm not going to worry about it. Okay, get remaining bytes, get red bytes. I think I have both of those. Yep. I might be lucky. This might actually be the same and has remaining bytes. I know I have that one too. Okay. Yeah, thankfully I think this might be largely unmodified. Okay, I also know this context message thing is not. That doesn't matter. Neither do log message, log error, log warning. None of those matter. Okay. Next bytes and C string. I know those are also in there. Same thing with fixed link string. Okay, so it looks like there's not much I need to worry about. Okay, so child context. Is that a thing? Yes, it is. All right. That looks like the same as what I coded earlier, so we're not going to worry about that one. All right, I might be lucky. This one may have already had everything. All right, so we have U32, got it. U16 LE, got it. U8 LE, got it. And then S16 LE. All right. Hey, look at that. We might be almost done. Yeah, okay, cool. Nice. So that was actually identical to the one that was in Map Viewer. I thought they had diverged more than that. All right, so then we can just delete this file, which means now I can bring over the actual model files. So we'll bring those over. We'll do parsers, and I'm going to call this XXX file because that's the actual extension that the game uses. Which I said at the start of the stream, even though the game supports DirectX, the XXX extension is not a DirectX file. DirectX does have a model file, or a mesh file, I should say, with a .x extension, but Riverworld's .xxx is not the same thing, although it does seem to store a lot of similar data. Oh, yeah, that blew up with errors because the class has a different name. Cool. Okay. So first and foremost, we're going to rename that to model file model. It sounds redundant, but I'm talking about like a software model. We're going to rename this to parse. And everywhere in here that I use deserialization context, that needs to change to parse context. Wait, what? Why did that not? Oh, okay, there we go. All right. And unfortunately, I would go through this class and show how the models work, but model files in Riverworld are, I don't want to say they're insanely complicated. They're not really that complicated, but there's a lot of steps to parsing them. So I'll say what I said at the start of the stream. If anyone's interested in how Riverworld's file formats work, it's on the wiki, and I have a IMHEX pattern there that you can plug into IMHEX, and it will give you a nice color-coded view of the data. The unfortunate situation, though, I will say at a high level, the model files are like, in a lot of ways, they're almost like NBTs from Minecraft. You have named sections, so it has 4 bytes that will literally spell like an ASCII word using 4 characters, and then following that will be a length, or it might be the length and then the 4 characters. Either way, you have like the header, which is the type of data, the length, and then you have the chunk of data, and every section is parsed a different way. So I call those frames in the, it's just the normal standard term you'd use for that. So in here, I have a lot of subclasses for like the maps frame, the animation frame, or what I think is animation frame, I'm not certain. Material attributes frame, materials frame, and all that. And each one of them parses its data differently. So this one file contains yeah, like face array frame. It contains like 8 or 9 different parsers for parsing the data out of a model file. And I'm almost 100% certain that these are going to get pulled out. Right now I inlined them because it was the easiest thing to do when I was prototyping. The reason I say they're going to need to get pulled out though is because I've learned Riverworld actually has more than one model file format. It also has a ZZZ and a YYY and a WWW. Or actually, I don't think it has a YYY. It has a ZZZ and a WWW. One of those I found, I don't know which one off the top of my head, has the main characters in it. So I learned that the XXX files only store more or less static geometry. So it has things like buildings, vehicles, 3D icons for resources, trees, things like that. But none of the animated characters are in either of those formats. But I found files with, again, it was either WWW or ZZZ, I forget which one. One of those two had names that matched the characters in the game. So I'm fairly certain, and when I peeked at the files, it seemed to use the same structure with like 4 characters length section of data, but there were sections in there that are not the same as the XXX. So my thought is that they may be the same. They're either the same format, and it's just that one of them has a different extension to indicate that it contains extra data, or they may be a very similar format that happens to share some similar sections. So these may get ripped out. Oh, I actually have a serialize. That's interesting. I didn't realize I had a serialize for this one. Huh. Well, that's cool. I guess I'm one step closer to having the writer set up for that. Okay. Failed to load script. Oh, yeah. I need to actually add that. Yeah, okay, now it's going to be mad about that. Oh. Yeah, and this is also the other issue, is I didn't type a lot of things whenever I first coded this. I'm not going to go through and fix that right now, but yeah, I'm sure that's a problem. Okay, we're going to clear that. I'm sure there has to be well, maybe not. Maybe there aren't more errors in this file than that. I kind of thought there would be, renaming it that way. All right. Oh, cool. That took care of that. So we can get rid of the model files, or I guess I already did. So next is the importer. This one's definitely going to need some changes. Also not sure what this user interface one is. It's a canvas layer. What was I doing in here? Options button. That's interesting. I coded this. Oh, this is supposed to be a scene. Interesting. The TSCN file's missing. That's mildly concerning. Oh, actually, you know what? I bet it's... Yeah, let me check. I probably just attached more than one script to this. Is that what I... Yeah, that's what I did. I bet you that's what I did. Okay, let's find that ID. Yeah, okay. Yeah, node name, user interface, canvas layer, parent. Okay. That was really bad practice to do that. Okay, well, those will have to get imported together, but let's bring the importer over. So I already have a folder for that. Where did I shove it though? There it is, model viewer. All right, we're gonna drag that over in here. Okay. Yep, and that blew up. I thought it would. So we're gonna have to another one where I made it an object. There we go. Okay. A lot of uninitialized variables in here too. Jeez. And I was really just going crazy with coding this thing. I did not even care. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so this is also the model file itself is complicated just to parse all the data, but it's relatively straightforward once you know how to parse it. The importer is the thing that actually takes that data and turns it into a mesh which is fairly complicated to do in Godot actually, because the models are split into sub objects, which isn't that surprising, but they do some weird things where like the same vertex can have multiple normals in the file. And they also do some interesting stuff where I've learned that the UVs can be remapped in multiple like contexts, so it makes it a little difficult to like parse the data, because it does a lot of stuff that's just, at least to my knowledge, not normal anymore. I don't think modeling software does that. So I'm curious if that's just a quirk of the modeling software they use to make Riverworld, or if they had like a pre-parser, or if that is a normal thing that I've just never seen before. But it does make it hard to deal with, because Godot does not want to work that way. So I have to do some funky stuff where I copy geometry so that I can have one copy with one set of UVs, faces, and normals, and then another copy that's using the exact same vertices with different UVs, faces, and normals. There's also another weird thing, which is that select faces in Riverworld can be double-sided or not. It's not like it's the whole model, it's just individual faces can be. But Godot, making something double-sided is a property of the material, not the mesh. Where in Riverworld, materials do not control that, it's the mesh that controls it. So it's a really, just a interesting little difference in how these two pieces of software work. Okay, well, it looks like this should be fine. Bad coding practices aside, I think it'll be fine. Okay, so then the last thing I need to move over is the main code. All of this is realistically part of the user interface, so I'm just going to chuck it into the same folder. So let's see, we're going to go back up to Rivermod, under scenes, UI. We're going to do model viewer, and we're just going to bring all of that over and watch it explode. Yep, okay, expected that. So first and foremost, we're going to rename main to model viewer. Okay. And again, I did the same thing where the root node is the wrong thing. Okay, so that is going to be model viewer. We're going to make this the root. And then we're going to bring that out so it's not a child of the 3D stuff anymore. Okay, and we're going to detach that script, and then we're going to attach. Okay, will load existing file, that's good. All right. This script really didn't have a class name on it. Wow. Man, I was sloppy when I wrote this. I'm kind of ashamed. Oh, you know what? I remember what it was now. So when I was writing Rivermod, I remember I got really burnt out while I was developing it, and I didn't want to go back and fix a lot of this. That's what it was. And I remember having this argument. I had this internal struggle about whether or not I was going to publish it or not at the time, because of how broken and how shoddily a lot of this was coded. Now it's coming back to me now. The shame of the state of this code base. Okay. Well, all right. We'll fix that another time, but okay, these need to be constants. We need to fix that. Also need to fix the paths to them. This, let me guess that. Yeah, that needs to be a parse context. So we'll rename that. This needs to be parse instead of deserialize. And that is also model. Okay, cool. I think that's log event, not message. Oh, no, maybe it is log message. Oh, this is wrong. That's what's up here. No, I think this is event, though. Yeah, there we go. Am I sure that's... Oh, okay. All right, well, I guess that is correct. I was not expecting that. Yeah, so this is, I don't know if this is common for other modding tools, but I'll throw out this little bit of advice. If you're writing a parser for a file for a game or really anything, and you're not the author of that file format, and you're not 100% certain, like you've reverse engineered the file format, if you're not 100% certain about it, do your best to parse it, but try to skip errors. And instead of failing on them, log whatever thing went wrong. So if you were expecting to read a 32-bit number and there's only 3 bytes left in the file, throw an error, but leave the rest of the data as is and default whatever number you were trying to read to something reasonable. The reason I say that is that if you just error out and you don't load the file, it's going to make it very difficult to see what's wrong with it. So when you're trying to perfect your parser, perfect your understanding of that format, having any assertion, like if you see if you've got a game and there's some unknown field and you don't know what that field does, but every file you open, for example, the field is set to 1. Like let's say it's an 8-bit number, and every single file you open, that field is set to 1. In your parser, read in that field, and even if you don't know what to do with it, write an assertion that says if it's anything other than 1, print some kind of warning. And that way, what you can do later is you can write a script to try to load every single model in the entire game, or whatever else you're dealing with, and record all of the assertions that didn't match. And what that will tell you then is which of these things are potentially using that field. If none of them are using it, then okay, whatever. It may not even be a field you need to concern yourself with. But if one of them is different, now you know there's something about that file that's unique compared to the other ones. And you can look at it and see what that thing is in game and try to understand what about it is different. And that might give you a clue about what that is supposed to be. I'm trying to think of a good example. One of them I think I had with the models was that one of the models had a transparency option set that the others didn't have. So that was one thing I figured out by going through that. But it'll also help you, having that option will make it a lot easier for you to self-test and check your compatibility with the files too. Whereas if you just outright crash, it's going to make it a lot harder, especially since Godot doesn't have exception handling. Okay, so let's see here. Yeah, we're gonna do wireframe material, and then we're gonna do normal vector material. And thankfully these are pretty easy. Just bring them in using the UIDs. So we will do normal vector material and wireframe material. Perfect. Okay, now this is probably thrown up an error somewhere. There we go. So we'll fix that. And it looks like this is suffering from the same mistake the other code was, where I wired everything through the inspector instead of wiring it in code. So all of that is broken. So we have 3... I'm assuming these 3 things that need to be linked. So we're going to come back up to here into ready, and we're going to relink those. And this should be pretty straightforward. Okay. So let's see. Oh, interesting. I didn't even bring these in. Wait, what the heck is this though? User interface. Why? Oh, right. Okay. Let me look at this. Is this using signals? Yeah. Okay. So it's this thing I need to be listening to. Okay. Let's split this out because this is bad. This really should not be its own thing. Let me just make sure something really quick though. Oh, these do have. Okay. Now I want to double check that. Okay, so this one didn't, but this one does have things connected. This node has connections. Okay. That also has connections, but it's going to the wrong place. It's going to the node 3D because we reparented it, which is another one of the reasons why I hate connecting signals. Because yeah, now these are all trying to go to the node 3D, which is no longer what has the script on it. That's annoying. Okay, well, let me double check something that this is not referencing. Yeah, okay, this is not referencing anything in there. I am going to move this stuff around a little bit though. All right, and we're going to bring that down there. That down there. There we go. Okay. That's just how I like to have my stuff organized. All right, so this, we are going to save this as its own scene. So we're going to say model viewer UI. I don't know. There we go. Okay, so now inside this, we're going to fix some of this. So these 5 things, all need to be... Oh, I guess I'm already... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, yeah, they're all in there already. Okay. So we're going to manually connect these now. I guess those can stay there for now. All right. Let's see. What do we've got? So model viewer option button. And I should be able to tell from the names in here what is what. Although this coding is still atrocious. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so model viewer, the only thing it had is on model option button, item selected, and that's on item selected. Connect. And we'll have to remind myself to unlink that as I go. Yep, we'll disconnect that there. Okay, so now we have render mode. That is also item selected. And that is going to on render mode button. Yeah, okay. Thankfully, I did name these pretty straightforward. Although they are all over the place in the code base. That is awful. Okay. All right, we'll disconnect that. And then we have, say, element. Yeah, that's also item selected. Connect. And let me guess. Yeah, on element selected. Yep. How did I guess that? All right, there we go. We'll bring that over. We'll disconnect that. All right, and then object list. And that is multi-selected. Connect. All right, cool. So those are all dealt with. Now, copy messages on pressed. Oh, I don't think I have that in the on readies. There we go. All right, cool. So then we need to do pressed, and then we should be almost ready to test this. I just need to do a couple things to clean up the main code. All right, and then I can disconnect that, get that out of there. And I'm not going to worry about those warnings right now. That's just the theme is screwed up. Okay. So now I need to fix this one real quick, because we have the same problem going on here. All right. All right, so first things first, we're going to do close requested dot connect. We're going to do Q3 because I said earlier with the map viewer, the architecture of this is not built in a way where I can connect that as easily as I'd like. I don't have a signal to indicate when the settings change, so the only way it's going to have to work right now is to just close and reopen it. Okay, so we have element selected. So user interface. This code is awful. Why are... Okay, these should be const. I half forgot what I was doing with that. Okay, that looks better. And these should also be above that if I'm following the style guide. There we go. That looks better. That's slightly less of an affront. All right, user interface. We want to do on element selected connect, and that should be going to on user interface element selected. Oop. Okay, that should be fine. So we can disconnect that. Now we have model file selected. There we go. Model file selected. .connect. And apparently that was a... Oh, there we go. There's that one. It's interesting that this one brought over its connections, but the other one did not. I must have done something that broke that whenever I brought it over. Okay, either way. Now we have render mode. I will say this one's less broken than the map viewer, funnily enough. I think what happened is I wrote this one after the map viewer. All right, now visible. Visible objects changed. Connect. I don't know why I'm listening to a signal from that, but whatever. Okay, so then I can disconnect all of that nonsense. This is a window, so we're fine there. We have queue free, so we're good. This is all an absolute mess the way I've coded this, but actually, where... Why is that? What is the warning here? Function mode is shadow. Oh. Oh, it's probably okay, yeah. Because I changed what this is inheriting from. Probably messed with it. There we go. I'm guessing window must have something called mode as well. All right. So now the last thing I need to do is I need a var injector. Injector equals null. So that will allow the injector to run. Actually, that's interesting. Where is it getting... Where is the logic to get the game directory in here? That's curious. I don't see it. Is it? Oh, I bet I put it in here. Is it in the importer? I bet it is. What did I do? Let me see. Game. Huh. Okay, we have texture directory. Oh no, it gets initialized with that. Okay. What on earth did I do? Okay, so model viewer GD. Let's take a look at that. Surely it has to be in here somewhere, because you can change the game directory. Okay, it's time to bring up the code base. Let's look at that. How on earth does this work? So let's go to main. Oh, you know what? Actually, there's an easier way to find this. I can go to the external tool service and check it. Yeah, okay, so it's doing game directory equals, okay. So we're going to search on the project for that. Oh, it's in user interface. Oh, why did I do that? Oh, that's so obnoxious. Why would I have put it in here? Oh, yeah, there it is. Oh, that is awful. Okay. So the reason that's awful is because I don't think my dependency injection framework handles nested injection. So we're probably going to have to inject this manually. Okay, so we have injector, and then I'm going to have to do var config service editor configuration service equals blah, blah, blah equals injector dot provide editor configuration service, and then in here I have to do dot get game install directory. Okay. And then this does not need to exist anymore. So yeah, this is some bad. I made the user interface responsible for knowing where the files were stored, which is great. Love that. Love that I did that. Okay, cool. So that will now inject, I think. But let me look into this. Let me find the injector code and see how this works. So if I do provide scene, it's going to call inject properties, which is going to go through injector class name, property list. Yeah, okay, it is not nested. So that means that in the model viewer, I have to inject the user interface. I can't just have it here, which isn't that bad, but it is annoying. So this user interface in here, this cannot be that. It can't be an onReady. We have to just do this. Make that null. And then in here, I need to do user interface equals injector dot provide. And this needs to be model viewer user interface. I'll rename that. Rename that there too, because otherwise this is going to get messy. Okay, so we're going to provide that. Okay, so now I need to do add child. We'll add the user interface manually. Then we connect all the signals. Okay. Again, that's what I get for trying to write my own dependency injection framework. There's a lot of holes in what it can do. Okay. So that is now there. Then I'm also realizing this default material, that's a problem because that is not going to preload correctly. So we need to bring that over. That shouldn't even be an export. That should be a const. All right, so we'll say default material. And that probably broke something somewhere. Yep, there it is. All right, cool. All right, I think that should work now, hopefully. So now all I need to do is go back to main and do the same thing. Or was it? Ah, there we go. Do the same thing here that I was doing with the model viewer, or with the map viewer. This variable doesn't exist. We'll make it. That'll be fine. All right. And we will do model viewer scene. Okay, so then we can just pop back up here. Do that. Nope, no. Model viewer equals null. Then we need to bring over the scene. Let's see, where is it? Yep, there we go. And we will get that brought over. Okay. I think that's good. So last thing, we will go rip out the code from the external tool service for the model viewer. That way, in case I was calling it anywhere, we'll get an error. Okay, yeah, we'll also rip out the stop function while we're at it. In fact, actually at this point, I can just delete the entire external tool service. Yep, okay, so now we will just delete that file. And I think main is going to blow up because of that, which is fine. Okay, so there should be an error in here somewhere now. Yep, there it is. Uh-huh. All right, and we don't need that. That may have been everything. Okay. Oh, compile error. Failed to compile dependent scripts. Interesting. All right, well, we'll see if that's a real error or not when we try to run it. Yep, okay, it is a real. Oh, it's in, okay, it's in another script. All right. Yeah. Oh, I forgot. Oh, right. Now the game's running, so it's not gonna let me do that. All right, there we go. Yeah, I really did make this exactly like the way Juice works. It's annoying. Okay. Provide, yeah. Yeah, that is an absolute pain in the ass that I did that. This was totally and wholly unnecessary. Let my failings be a lesson. Okay, there we go. 4 warnings, that's fine. Those are warnings I was expecting. So if I open model viewer, it explodes. Great. Okay. Right. Non-existent function provide on nil. Okay. Why? Oh, well, that would be part of it. Okay, so model viewer. Let me close that again. Okay. So user interface, model viewer user interface. Yeah, all right. That is model user interface. Okay. How am I provide? Oh, right. Okay, that's not gonna work because this is a scene. Yeah, okay, so since that's a scene, I have to do that instead. Because otherwise the nodes that it relies on are all gonna be missing. Okay. Also, that needs to be renamed and moved into that directory. That would certainly help. Okay, so now I can bring this in. All right, I think that'll fix it. All right, we still have the same problem of it starting super small, but all right, that's a good sign. It's got all of the, oh, okay. A couple errors there, but we'll work that out. First things first, we're gonna make that 640 by 480. In fact, actually, one thing I'm gonna do, we're gonna look at the TSN files, and we're gonna figure out how big this was supposed to be originally. So main, actually, it wouldn't be in main, would it? It would be in the project settings. Okay, what did it say? 1024 by 768 is what I had the model viewer opening as. So we will just set that. Now, normally I wouldn't set this on the root node. I mentioned this in one of the game jams. It's usually not a great idea to set properties on the root node like this because it can get overridden and you can end up with some weird problems, or you can end up confusing yourself, really, is what can happen. But I'm not going to worry about that right this minute. Let me double check the map viewer as well. Okay, the map viewer was just using whatever its default size was. That's weird. I'm probably going to change it to 1024 by 768 as well. There's no reason to open these in a super small font or format. Eventually, this needs to hook into a preference system so that it remembers what size they were and where that you had them on screen, but I'm not going to worry about that just yet. Okay. So let's double check a couple things. Map viewer. All right, that opens. That's good. All right, model viewer. Ah, okay. Well, two problems. One, a bunch of warnings. Two, that needs to open center. There we go. Let's try this again. Oh, that's... Oh, nope, there it goes. Okay. That is logging a lot of errors. Ah, okay, so it's... Okay. So there's missing inputs. That's... Okay, fair. Camera zoom in, camera zoom out. Okay, that's literally all it is. It's just camera zoom in, camera zoom out. Alright. Camera zoom in. Camera zoom out. I'm actually not certain what those are supposed to be mapped to, so we're going to check the Rivermod wiki and see what I said they were supposed to be mapped to. Yeah, Rivermod help. Model viewer. Adjusting the camera. Okay, to move the camera close, scroll up. So zoom in would be up, and scroll would be down. All right. I can feel model viewer is lagging the computer, I guess because it's probably logging thousands of those errors. Okay, that's good. No more errors. Let's try to load something. Non-existent function get messages. I kind of thought this would be the case. I don't think it's called get messages. I think it's called get events now. Where is parse context? Yes, it's get events. All right, I thought so. Okay. We're gonna rename that. It looks like this is the only part in the code that actually does this, so we're gonna do that. And does it have a get message on this? Yes, it is called get message and get level, so that should be fine. All right, cool. So then this hopefully will work and not explode on me. We open the model viewer. Let's see. We'll do wood watchtower. Hey, there it goes. Ha! It's working. All right. Well, that means that the code bases are fully merged now, so we no longer have 3 separate executables. Nice. I don't know what half these models are, but they look like they're rendering correctly. Although, it looks like there's a haze over the screen. I don't think that was there originally. I think there's something funny going on with that. Yeah, okay, I should look into that. Why is there a haze? I'm guessing it has something to do with this user interface. That is a canvas layer. Okay, no, all right. None of that looks like that should be... I don't see anything that would be causing that. I wonder if that's a change, because this is an older Godot project. That might be a change to the way the fog rendering works that's causing that to happen. All right, let's... All right, we're going to save this environment. We're going to do save as. We'll do environments. If I can spell environment. Environment. There we go. Okay, so we're going to say model viewer environment. All right, cool. All right, now what? Okay, so I have volumetric fog is on. That might be what's causing that. Okay, so now I can just delete this node now that that's there. We can see what happens now. Okay, model viewer. Oh, wow, that still looks hazy. All right. Oh, wait, no. Okay, that did fix it. It was the fog. Okay, good to know. Also, it occurs to me, I think the camera in this, I need to fix that. Yeah, let me do unhandled input. I didn't know that at the time, how to do that, but I bet this fixes my issue where if you scroll over that bar, it makes the camera scroll. Okay, let's load that watchtower again. Oh, no, it doesn't. That's interesting. So this doesn't count as handling the input when you scroll over a scroll container. Yeah, whatever. Okay. Cool. So it was just the environment that was causing that issue. So we're going to add that back. We're going to do a couple other things here. This grid is using a custom material. So we're going to save that. I want to make sure that all of these are saved this time around. So we're going to say that this is a model viewer grid material. And then I'm going to save this as under a meshes directory. And we're going to say model viewer grid mesh. Okay. That way none of this stuff is just being referenced in the scene where it can potentially get lost. Okay, in the sky plane. So this needs to be saved as the cloud material. And we are just going to call that cloud material. And then we're going to save this, though, as the model viewer mesh. So model viewer sky mesh. Awesome. All right. Okay, guess we're reconnected. Wasn't expecting that, but all right. Okay, so we are going to reconnect the model viewer environment. Okay, I'm also going to rename this to map viewer grid material. There we go. Okay. So let's see if I can fix the environment, because I do want to keep the fog, but there's clearly something weird going on here with this that's messing it up. It looks like the only thing I had enabled was fog, though, which is kind of interesting. It might be this clear color. Let me go and check. We're going to again look at the project file. Again, my plug for you should look at your project files and your Trez files. There's a lot of useful stuff in there if you're ever trying to migrate an old project. So here I can check and see if I had a different color or something set. No, it looks like we just had the input modes and that, and the forward plus rendering, and all I ever did was set the max FPS, which is not really a good reason for that. So I wasn't using a custom clear color. Let me try eliminating the multiplier, and we'll see if that fixes it, because it could be that that was just too low, maybe. No, I think it's the fog. Okay. All right, let's try turning the fog off then and see what happens. It also occurs to me, let me double check that I can't open two model viewers at once. Nope. Okay, good. All right. Yeah, okay, it really is just the fog that's messing it up, which is really disappointing. I think they must have changed something with the way the fog works. Length, let's see, the distance over which the volumetric fog is computed. Decrease to add more detail. For mesh quality as low as possible. Okay. How do I make the fog appear at a greater distance? That's global illumination, emission energy. Is the detail spread? Distribution of size down the length of the frog. Okay, yeah, that is beyond my understanding what that does. I don't normally deal with volumetric fog. I usually use basic fog. I think I might need to adjust the density. Let's try that. That's interesting. I was not expecting the fog to be one of the things that broke in a new version. Okay, well, I can already tell that looks different. Okay, so it is the density is the problem. So let's try to bring that back up. Or at least with the settings I've got, density is the problem. Okay. Yeah, okay. That just isn't working. That just does not look right at all. So I like how the background looks. The fog makes the background look good, but I don't like what it's doing to the model. So let me see if I can disable volumetric fog on the model. So this would be on the model importer. Let me see if I can find wherever the material is being created. Okay, we're taking an array of materials. Get material index, set surface material. Okay, there we go. Standard material 3D. Okay, so here's where we're constructing the material. Okay, so call mode disabled. Yeah, okay, transparency disabled. Albedo texture. Okay, so we're not doing anything with that. So I'm going to say disable fog equals true. Which isn't necessarily the correct thing to be doing, but at least with the way the editor is coded right now, that's the intended behavior. Okay, there we go. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of problems with... I love how this thing looks. The clouds, the fog, the way these kind of dither out into the distance. But I do not love the way it's coded, unfortunately. Let me see. Where's some, like, stellar stuff? Some of the cooler... Okay, yeah, we have Cyber Frigate. So this is why I like this game. Look at this crazy model. Some of these models are just awesome looking and surprisingly, like, decent resolution, too. For the game running in such a low resolution that it does, these models actually look pretty damn good. Like, you could take models of this quality in a modern game and they would still look good. Like, obviously a stylized modern game, but look at this stuff. That is cool. The artist really went hard on this game. It's a shame that the game isn't better than it is. Okay. Yeah, these are cursors. Some of these are like, the game uses a lot of 3D models for its user interface. So I'm guessing that's what a lot of these are. There's probably some special logic in the game to handle them. Let's see what else we got here. Some of these cyber things look really cool. Where is the cyber supersonic aircraft? Yeah, this is the thing on the cover of the box, which looks awesome. And then we also have the stellar stuff, which is further along. So you have like stellar armor, stellar workshop. This is the stuff that looks very HR Geiger or Giger. A lot of like biomechanical stuff. Just looks awesome. But all right. So now that... Oh, wait, hold on. We've got warnings. I was about to wrap it up. Why are there errors? Oh, okay. That's just normal. That's just the game detecting that there's a... whatever it was trying to load. was not in the game's files, which is, I found that's the case with some of the models. Okay. So now let me pop open the model or map viewer at the same time. Hey, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Now, hold on. What did I break? Why does pressing the map viewer button open that? Wait, why does pressing model viewer do nothing? What the heck? Oh. And here I thought I had this fixed. Okay, what the heck did I do? Launch model viewer is... Yeah, okay. Model viewer, map viewer. Okay, I thought maybe I had some of these crossed. No. That's interesting. If I launch the map viewer first, does it work? Yes. And if I try to launch the model viewer? Oh, what the heck? What? It turned the map... What? Oh, it turned the map viewer into the model viewer? Okay, so that error from earlier... No, wait, it didn't. Oh, I think I know what's happening. Okay, I think I know what's going on here. I was not expecting this problem. I think... Okay, well, okay, no, that's not... What? No, okay, I think I know what the problem is. This is weird. There's only one 3D world, I think. So whenever I add something to the map viewer, it shows up in the 3D world of the model viewer. They're the same world. I thought that viewports had independent worlds, though. That's an interesting problem. Let me double check something, if there's something in the settings here that I can change. Okay. Custom world 3D. Interesting. Okay, that's all just like window flag. So it would be the viewport. Open world 3D. I wonder if true. Oh, okay, there we go. That's what I need. Okay, so let's try setting that. That's an important setting. That's good to know that that is a thing. I was gonna say, what the hell was happening? Okay, so if we open the map viewer and then we open the model viewer. Okay, good. These are separate now. That setting really does seem to be what needed to be fixed. That is not a problem I was expecting to have. Now, the next thing I would really like to have is threading. Also, let me make sure the normal maps and stuff are working. That looks like it is. All right, and the wireframe, yep, that's working. Awesome. Okay. So then... All right, yeah. It looks like both are working correctly now. It was just literally that was the problem. All right, so let's double check. If I try to open the map viewer, yep, opens the map viewer. Try to open the model viewer. All right, cool. We're good. It's working now. Okay. So what I'm gonna say then is I think I'm gonna call it here. The code bases are now merged. I will probably do a little bit more work to do some basic, you know, administrative stuff, update the version numbers. But I think I am going to go ahead and publish this with the code bases merged before I start any other improvements. since I wouldn't do that normally, except because it functionally doesn't make a difference. But I've learned that the code I had checked into Git was missing files, so it wouldn't have compiled anyways. So I will get this cleaned up sometime, either this week or next, and get a new version published that fixes this. So hopefully all the code in Git will be correct, and it will just be one executable now instead of needing to download and run 3. But hey, if you're a VOD watcher, or if you tuned into the stream and are watching it back later, I appreciate you coming along for the journey and slogging through some of the worst code I've ever wrote. And like I said, I'm going to get back to working on the ProtoJam stuff. Probably not going to do any more Rivermod stuff on stream for a little bit. I'm probably going to wait until I've got that cleaned up, and I'm going to do that on my own. But if there's any like major development with it, I might stream that in the future. But yeah, we're going to get back to the ProtoJam stuff. Like I said at the start of the stream, I don't know if I said it at the start of the stream, but I wanted to, there's a couple things I want to change with what I was doing with the game idea. Downside of streaming your ideation for your game is that as soon as the stream ends, you realize that some of the ideas you said were stupid. So I don't know if I'm going to stream, maybe again this week, hopefully either Thursday or Friday, and we'll be back working on the ProtoJam example game. Also, ProtoJam has more documentation on its wiki now. So if you do want to try and use it before it's officially published, there is actually documentation now, not for everything, but for some stuff. And I'll keep working on that in the background. But hey, again, thanks for watching. If you're working on your own game, your own project, your own modding tools, whatever it is, I wish you the best of luck. And hey, let me know what you're working on. Thanks, and have a good one.